My name's Charlie Tayler, and this is the Great British Chef's signature series. Inspiration for these dishes, it's a creative process. I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and have a vivid idea of a dish and how it's going to look, how it's going to taste, what plate it's going to go on. For me, if it's delicious, if it's tasty, it's going on the menu. Working in a restaurant like Owlis, it's such a small environment. It's such a different vibe to working in sort of the classical restaurant. When you put a dish in front of the room goes quiet sometimes. And you sort of try and judge if that's a good or a bad quiet, and then you hear ums and ahs and people say wow. And to have that interaction with guests and people say, oh, that's my favorite. And then you give them another course, they go, that's my favorite. Then you give them another course and it's just like, I don't know which one's my favorite. That's so satisfying. So my name's Charlie Tayler, I'm head chef here at Owlis. Small chef's table, just cook for 8 people an evening with produce that's majority from our farm in the Lake District. So today we're cooking a cabbage dish, effectively. So we get these beautiful cabbages from our farm, variety of cabbage called Duncan cabbage, with a few other things, almost a few Japanese flavors in the mix there. So a mock teriyaki sauce, some pickled mushrooms, and some crispy kale on there as well. So first up, this cabbage, our Farmer John, he grows them for us. And they're just stunning, right? They're so light in color. They're almost like a hispy cabbage or a pointed cabbage. So if you can't get hold of a Duncan cabbage, then obviously those style of cabbages, you can find them easily anywhere. Great sweetness to them. And I love the cross section on this as well. It's always, it always looks pretty on the inside and on the outside. So we just quartered the cabbage, so cut that into 4. We've taken out the majority of the core, leaving a little bit on there. We're gonna cook these cabbages with beef fat. So we get this beef fat from our butcher there based in Launceston in Cornwall, Philip Warren's. Amazing aged beef fat. We're just going to drench this cabbage in the beef fat. For me, this dish, it is a cabbage dish, but with this amount of beef fat on it, it almost gives it roast dinner sort of vibes as you eat it. We're just going to season it a little bit right at the beginning. A little bit of salt all over. Delicately steam this, but just to ensure that beef fat stays on the cabbage, we're going to be using a sous vide bag. If you don't have a sous vide bag, then you can just really delicately roast it instead. So that's the same process. We want to lock in all that flavor and all that beef fat locked in and in between all the layers of the cabbage as well. So that's going to go into the steamer. So all these bits that we cut off the cabbage, we don't want to get rid of them, right? So we're going to chuck that in the oven and roast the hell out of it basically. So it goes super crispy, really rich. And we're going to blitz that to a fine dust just so we ensure we're using the entire cabbage as well. So as the cabbage is steaming, we've got this kale from our farm as well. This kale, I mean, it's just beautiful. The colors of it, the flavor of it as well. And again, I don't want to mess around with this too much. It's delicious and it's beautiful as it is. So we're going to cook it really slowly in a pan. So there's going to be a crispy element on our dish. For me, texture and varieties of texture, contrast of texture on a dish is so important. So we've got a dry pan here. So this is going to sit medium to low heat in the dry pan. And that's going to sit there for about 30 minutes, super slow and low, and it's going to crisp up. Got these little mushrooms as well. So these mushrooms called shimiji mushrooms. They're quite fun because of their size, but also they're delicious as well. So we like the little tips. So we're just going to go around and take off the majority of these little tops of the mushrooms. We're going to pickle them down very simply. So I've got a basic pickle liquor here. Very simple, equal quantities, white wine vinegar, sugar and water. We're literally just going to bring that to the boil and then pour it over the tops of the shimiji mushrooms. Give it a little shake. And that's it, we're just gonna let that cool down to room temperature. So we're not gonna discard this, we're actually gonna ferment these mushroom stalks. So we're gonna put 2% salt on them, leave them for 2 to 3 weeks so that starts that lacto fermentation process. And then that's gonna go on the same dish, because for me it makes sense to season the mushrooms with more mushroom. So while mushrooms are pickling, cooling down to room temperature, we're going to make a little wasabi mayonnaise. So again, sort of sticking with that Japanese theme. But for me, wasabi is such an aggressive flavor, right? So we've actually grated it pretty early, because when you grate fresh wasabi, it's super fiery and super spicy. Then after 5-10 minutes, that flavor really calms down and really relaxes and mellows out. So almost like a simple mayonnaise, effectively. So the same base as any mayonnaise. We've got some eggs, a little touch of sherry vinegar as well, and a touch of salt. And then we have this English wasabi. I think I prefer it to Japanese wasabi as well. Just kind of lends to the Western palate a little bit more. It's not too spicy, not too intense, but still that great, amazing flavor of wasabi. So we're gonna add that wasabi to the egg base as well. And then in true mayonnaise style, just slowly emulsify some oil into it. So you gradually add that oil to the eggs. If you add it too quickly, it will split. All the oil is emulsified into our wasabi mayonnaise, so you can see just thickened up. It's a great consistency. We've been working on this recipe for a while, so I'm always pretty confident that it's there. So the cabbage has just come out of the oven. You can just smell that flavour from the beef fat as well. So we don't want to steam the hell out of this. We don't want to completely break it down. We still want a bit of texture. We still want chasing that al dente texture running through it, basically. We're just going to roll it in cling film just because we're chasing a nice uniform shape. It's quite a chefy thing to do. You don't have to do this. I mean, it's delicious just to be served and cooked like that as well. So we've just rolled that in cling film just so we get a nice uniform shape, basically. So we're going to let that just firm up for 10 minutes in the fridge. So the cabbage is firmed up in the fridge now. So we're just going to slice a nice portion of it. Great cross section running through there as well. All that beef fat is rolled through the middle. We go quite small on our portions here. Obviously we're serving a large taster mini. We don't want to fill people up with one dish, even though I wouldn't mind being filled up with this dish because it is delicious. Give it a bit of colour with a blowtorch. So this is going to give a nice sort of roasted, charred flavour running through it. If you haven't got a blowtorch, then a hot grill will do the same job as well. And then a little flash through the oven just to ensure it's hot all the way through. We're pretty much ready to assemble the dish now. I've just put the wasabi mayonnaise into a spoon gun, so it's going to aerate it, so really nice, fluffy, airy texture. So our cabbages, we're going to top it a little extra bit of beef fat, just for good measure. A little touch of Maldon sea salt, just to ensure that beef fat has been seasoned throughout as well. So that's going to take center stage on our dish, and then top the cabbage with the shimijis. I like to go quite generous with the shimijis. There's a great acidity running through them from the pickle liquor. And then we've got this mock teriyaki sauce. We call it mock teriyaki because we wanted to use all of our trims from our shimiji mushrooms. So we've fermented the trim of the mushrooms, and then we've reduced that stock with some mead and some honey as well. So all British produce in there, building those layers of flavour. And then we're going to go with the wasabi foam. You don't have to put it in the espuma gun. For me, it's a great different texture I like to use for this dish. It's not that spicy, so you can be quite generous with it. And we've got a beautiful crispy kale as well. So that's been slowly crisping up in the pan. Absolutely amazing colours running through it. Amazing texture as well. Peacock kale from our farm. And then, as I said, from all the larger leaves from the cabbage, didn't want to discard them as well. So we've blitzed them down to a powder, roasted it, just so we're using the whole cabbage that's given to us. And then finally, a little bit of kale cress as well. So this kale cress is grown in polytunnels on our farm by Farmer John. So this is Duncan cabbage dish with English wasabi, mock teriyaki sauce, and some crispy kale on there as well.